how did it come around that they decided to, in '92, put the title on the line? Like, what was the? We know there's the Greatest Challenge this Tuesday in Texas, but what led them to kind of going, we're going to put the Rumble, have the title on the line at the Rumble, and make it much bigger than before?
Well, talk us through what happened to get to that point.
So we have the Survivors. So Ric Flair comes in September '91. He's the real World's Champion, a blurred belt, which initially was the NWA World title that he had brought over, and then eventually became a WWF Tag Team title with. If you watch some of the old Superstars, some of the worst editing of a little kind of black blob that as soon as he moves, the title moves for 5 seconds before the blob gets to him.
Hey, it was hard in those days.
It was difficult. But then it led to the Hulk Hogan Undertaker match at Survivor Series, the Greatest Challenge. Undertaker wins the title with help from a chair and Ric Flair. So then Jack Tunney makes it that a few days later, they tried it at a Tuesday pay-per-view, this Tuesday in Texas. Hogan won the belt back, but he won it by using ashes in the urn.
Dangerous things.
And Ric Flair picked up a comatose Jack Tunney so he could see it. So the title was vacant, which led us to how are we going to crown you champion?
Right. So after all that chaos, what can you possibly do? It was kind of logical that you do it in the Rumble, because you could just have a match between Hogan and who? Taker again? Hogan and Flair? There was no three ways then. They didn't exist. So it was kind of a logical build, and obviously the destination point was always the Rumble, and the reason being, you cannot beat Hogan with Flair. You want Flair to have the title. Hogan's not putting over the NWA guy. The WWF guy is not putting over the NWA guy. We've seen that 1,000 times. Sting and Triple H. The Alliance and WWF and everything beyond that. So Goldberg. So it was a way of getting the belt on Flair without him beating Hogan, and it was just an obvious logical way to do it. Is he's known as the guy who wrestles for an hour, so make him wrestle an hour, but make him wrestle everybody, because WWF back then was never going to have Flair wrestle one guy in an hour, but it was the way of saying, look, Ric Flair's the 60-minute man, and it fit the gimmick. So I think it was genius, really.
No, it's a great idea. I just wondered, did they kind of before Survivor Series kind of go, let's make the Rumble? Was it a long plan?
It will. I can't say 100% for certain, but it will have been, because back then things used to be. Obviously things will still change.
Yeah. But why do you think so? Because with the 90 and 91 Royal Rumble, there was loads of big stars in that, but the 92 Rumble is the one that everybody goes back to and talks about how many stars are in it, how epic it is. Why is 92 so epic apart from Flair?
It is literally everybody, isn't it? Because it helps that the title's on the line, so every single person in it has a goal, and back then being the champion meant something. There hadn't been many champions really, in those days. So when you saw someone like Sid come in, it was like, man, this guy could actually be the WWF champion. What's it going to look like if he's got the belt and such? And you had Sid, so you had Davey Boy, you had Savage, you had Taker, Flair, Hogan. You've got all of these big, and Piper, and all these big stars. Not Bret Hart, oddly enough, who wasn't in it. He is the sort of one glaring absentee from that era. But
because was this the point where they thought he was going to go to WCW, so they gave him the flu?
Yeah.
And then Piper won the belt in the undercard.
Yes, so it was, and yeah, and look, that was actually quite a good story, and it worked out pretty well for Bret. But
it was great.
And if he was in the Rumble, it's not like he was an Intercontinental title guy then. He wasn't going to be a challenger for it or anything.
Why do you think? Because 92, if you look at Rumble, the Rumble especially in 92, it's it was epic. It was they had everybody, they had everything. Why was business not booming at that point? Why in America was the idea of everybody coming together for this epic Royal Rumble for the title? Why was WWF still not able to pull in what they were 2 years before? Do you think?
It was to do with factors outside of what they were presenting on the screen, I think. Hulkamania had ran its course. Really, it had been, we're talking 8 years by that point. Really a bit longer if you count AWA as well. People did boo when did cheer when Hogan got thrown out of that match.
And it has been edited out of the...
Which has been edited out of various versions, but it does exist. You can still see it, and people went, popped big when Hogan got thrown out. So they were sick of him, and it was kind of like the same way with Cena, how people turn on Cena, or how people would turn on, various... remember that year people turned on Rey Mysterio? You know what I mean? People eventually just get tired of the same thing and want to break. And Hogan had been the guy for so long that they wanted something completely different. So
it was, and I mean, Ric Flair winning that Rumble, it's epic. And you were saying earlier about how when the title's on the line or when there's a title shot, it's like only 4 or 5 people could win. But in that Rumble, you could argue about 10 people could have won it, because there was Savage in there, there was Undertaker, Hogan, Sid, Flair.
Maybe not Skinner.
Maybe not Skinner, although always think he was underrated. But